You're now listening to the Engage the Rockies podcast, your go-to podcast for local and state issues concerning Colorado.
Hello, Rockies. This is Sarah Jane Maroney, your host for Engage the Rockies, your go-to podcast concerning local and state issues for Colorado. Welcome to our Monday interview. This week features a doubleheader with House Minority Leader Rose Pugliese and Senate Minority Leader Paul Lundeen. Rose Pugliese was elected to the House of Representatives in 2023 for District 14 and is now the House Minority Leader. She was previously a two-term Mesa County Commissioner. She's celebrated for her significant contributions to enhancing government transparency and fostering bipartisan cooperation. As a first-generation American, she proudly holds a Juris Doctorate degree and operates her own law firm. In addition to the rewarding role of being a single mother to two children, she remains steadfast in her commitment to her community and her constituents. Welcome, Rose. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
So, 75th session of the Colorado State Legislature, and you are the minority leader, correct?
I am, yes. I appreciate the faith of my caucus.
So tell us what's happening, what's going on. This has just started, and you've been at the Capitol. This is your second term, so you kind of know the lay of the land at this point. Tell us what you're expecting from this session.
I think it's going to be a very interesting session. As your listeners may know, we were able to end the supermajority and gain back 3 seats on the Republican side. And so that was an amazing accomplishment by all of our grassroots volunteers and our fabulous candidates. We still have a lot of work left to do, but we're hoping that this session, especially with more support, will be able to really bring forward the voices of our constituents and continue to fight for the values that Colorado believes in.
Awesome. And so you yourself, you've been in politics for a while now. When you were a little girl, did you want to grow up and be a county commissioner or a state legislator?
No, it wasn't my life dream. I wanted to be an attorney, and I am an attorney. But I kind of fell into politics just by getting a yard sign at Republican headquarters one day back in 2008. And I had a fabulous person who brought me in and said, hey, we want to get you involved. And you just never know where you'll end up. So I really appreciate all of our grassroots activists and them for getting involved.
Awesome. So tell me a little bit more about this. Since you're the minority party, I think, and obviously I've been to the Capitol a few times, but there's still a learning curve in getting it all down. But you're allowed to each put in 5 bills, or how does that work? And the Democrats can put as many as they want because they're majority party. Explain that a little bit to us, please.
Sure, absolutely. So every legislator, whether you're in the House or the Senate, Democrat or Republican, you're each entitled to 5 bills. You don't have to submit 5 bills, but you can submit up to 5 bills. And then if a bill starts in the Senate, I have a few bills that start in the Senate, it doesn't count against your 5 in the House. So if you are a member of the House and it starts in the House and it is your prime bill, then it counts. And if you are on the bill, but it starts in a different chamber, then it does not count. So that's why sometimes you'll see, I know my constituents ask all the time, if you're only allowed 5 bills, how is it that you have more than 5 bills? And that's how we get more than 5 bills. We can also ask for permission. Sometimes there's some late issues that come up. We did this on property tax a lot, where we weren't quite ready at the beginning of session. And so with permission from either the minority leader, majority leader, or the majority leader and the speaker, so 2 of our 3, you can get granted late bill status, which is an additional 1 to your 5.
Okay. And so that's working with a senator if the bills are originating in the Senate?
Yep. So either the bill's originating in the Senate and does not count against your 5, or you can ask permission to run another bill or multiple bills above your 5, as long as leadership, 2 of the 3 in leadership approves it.
And that's for both sides. It doesn't matter which. But the majority party can add more if they want, and their ability to add more, getting 2 of those 3 votes is important.
Exactly.
Cool. So in terms of this, I did look, again, I've been trying to let people know about, obviously, those of us who've been around a while, COLEG is the website you go to, which is actually that turns you into
Colorado.gov. Anyway, COLEG is always what's in my brain. So, but I was looking up and I saw that you have put a bill forward. What do you have against the plastic bags?
I always bring one repeal bill. My first session, I tried to repeal the retail delivery fee, which was the number one issue when I knocked doors in that election cycle. And then my second year, Senator Byron Pelton and I brought forward attempting to repeal the energy codes that were making housing less affordable and less attainable in Colorado, and also restricting energy choice for consumers. Obviously, neither one of those bills were able to pass a Democrat-controlled legislature. And then this year, my repeal bill, again, the number one issue I heard at doors, and I knocked doors all over the state, was the grocery bags and how angry people were. And, when I've had people reach out and say, of all your priorities, this 10-cent bag is where you want to spend your time. Where I focus my time is the places that our people, the people at the doors, when we door knock, what they're saying their number one issue is. And I think as representatives, we need to bring the voices of the people to the Capitol. And so Representative Gonzalez, one of our new three up in Northern Colorado, and Senator Byron Pelton, he loves repeal bills. So he and I always run repeal bills together. We'll be running that repeal bill, and it is our number one bill.
Awesome. Well, and it's interesting to me that you always run a repeal bill. One of the things that Engage the Rockies stands for is limited government. So that's amazing.
Yes, for sure.
And can you talk about what your other bills are yet, or is that still top secret?
No, generally I work on children and family bills. Most of my bills this year will be around affordability. I'm working with Paul Lundeen and Senator Kirkmeyer in the Senate on some potential rolling back of regulations bills. We're working with the Colorado Chamber on that. We hope those will be bipartisan, because if we truly do want to limit government, repealing and or rolling back regulations is really the way to make people more free. I think protecting Tabor is something that is consistently on our list as well. And so from our caucus, you're going to see efforts to protect Tabor. So I think we've got some really great ideas that we want to roll forward. Not all of my bills are finalized yet, but we do have some really good ideas floating around within our caucus members.
Wonderful. And so in terms of bills, once a bill, let's say someone is really interested in the bag tax, and that's something that's really gotten their goat and they want it repealed and want to support you. I know that citizens can come and testify. Tell us a little bit more about that from your perspective.
Absolutely. So there are a couple of different ways when I talk to people to get involved. The first is, yes, come down to the Capitol. We always love to see friendly faces, so please do that as well. But, for a lot of our people, especially from across the state, it is too hard to come in person. You can also testify over Zoom. And so you can sit on your couch and wait your turn in line, and you'll have about 3 minutes to be able to testify. You do need to sign up to testify, whether that's in person or from your couch on Zoom. And then I also encourage people to send letters telling their experiences so that I can tell their stories, not just in committee, but on the floor if a bill makes it to the floor. Because I think, again, raising up the voices of the people is really why I'm here. It's why most of our legislators are here, especially in our caucus. And so the more stories we can share, the more support we can get. It really does show the committee and legislators, if it hits the floor, that this is what the people want and that we're representing the people.
And what do you think are going to be the biggest challenges during this session? Because in Colorado, I don't actually know how it compares with other states, different things. I know Georgia has like 2 weeks or something insane, but we have 120 days of the legislature. So 120 days and then it's done, dusted. What do you think are going to be the biggest challenges that your caucus is going to face this session?
So I think the budget is going to be our number one talking item. And, for us, talking about what the proper role of government is, how to prioritize the state budget, there were a lot of programs that were started during the pandemic with one-time funding. And so maybe those programs need to go away, right? I mean, that's where I would start personally. We have a joint budget committee that actually works on everything budget outside of our individual caucus, but they will come forward with recommendations. And I'm sure our caucus for our constituents will bring forward recommendations to the budget, either places to cut or things that need to be funded, like K through 12 education is really important. Higher education is really important. And so making sure that we bring those voices to the table will be really important.
Also, in terms of your time, whether it was in Mesa County as a county commissioner or here in the state legislature, what do you feel like? And I asked another in another interview, and politics is a team sport. So it's not just individual performance, but what are you most proud of that you've done in terms of all of your political career to date?
Absolutely. It's funny. I just want to say something quick about the politics being a team sport. When I first ran for county commissioner and won, one of the people who were my mentors came up to me and said, "Now you're going to go from I to we," because there were 3 county commissioners. And she said, "You're no longer speaking for yourself. You're going to be speaking with your commissioners." The legislature is a little bit different. Not everybody sees it quite the same. But for me, really working on child and family issues. One of the things that I've done as a county commissioner and has come over as a legislator is a real focus on kinship families and making sure that we take away the barriers to kin being able to foster children within their families, and leaving foster care homes open for those that don't have any place to go, that don't have that family support. I come from a big, crazy Italian family where we all take care of each other. And so I started that work as a commissioner and have been able to continue that work in this role. And I'm incredibly proud of the ability to help bring those additional supports to kids who really need them.
Oh, that's awesome. Well done. So, last question. What else are you looking forward to in terms of this session? And if there was someone that was interested in politics, wanting to be involved, but doesn't quite know what to do, what would you suggest?
I am looking forward to my new caucus. We've got some great members returning, and we've added a lot of fresh new faces with great perspective and experiences. And I'm really excited about how unified we have started and will continue to be. I also want to tell people that we all legislate in a way that represents our constituents, and we don't, even as Republicans, we don't do it all exactly the same, and that's okay. So I just want to be very clear about that. As conservatives, we need to unite around the issues that are very important and allow legislators the space to legislate in the way that they feel most comfortable. And so if people want to get involved, like I said, testifying, telling us stories, and even if it's not our bill, I mean, there's going to be pieces of legislation that people do not like that are going through this session, making sure that you get us your stories so that even if you can't testify either remotely or in person, that we can tell your stories on the House floor or in committee is incredibly important. So I highly encourage you all to reach out to your legislators and help us to share your stories.
From my understanding, no matter what, especially if you read something or information is given to a committee, it enters into the state congressional record. Is that correct?
So it would be the state legislative record. Yes.
Okay. Sorry. See all these terms. It's all confusing. Learning
Yes.
as we go. Learning as we go.
Absolutely. Yes. Well, thank you for what you're doing to help educate and engage people. I think it's so important.
Well, we're excited.
For decades, Paul Lundeen has experienced success in business and public policy in Colorado. Paul represents Senate District 9 in the Colorado General Assembly and is the Senate Minority Leader. Previously, he was elected to the House of Representatives, which at that point was House District 19, and also the State Board of Education from the 5th Congressional District, where he served as a member and chairman. He's the founder of numerous small businesses. Paul has worked to advance the cause of charter school innovation and choice in education. He graduated from New York University, where he studied journalism and economics. Paul and his wife, Connie, of 33 years, raised their 2 adult children here in Colorado. Both graduated from Lewis Palmer High School.
Welcome, Senator Lundeen. Thanks for being here.
Sarah Jane, it's my pleasure. Thanks.
So I guess the big question is, what are you expecting this session?
The crystal ball question, I call that. Every time we answer that question, we get it wrong, but every legislator gets asked that question many, many times. It's an interesting session, and the way it's framing up at its most basic level, from my perspective, is we've got a budget problem. The state of Colorado is about $1 billion short of balancing its budget. And unlike the federal government that prints money and never balances its budget, the state, all 50 states or 50 states and commonwealths, are required to balance their budget. So there's a lot of people that are scurrying around. Oh, the state government is so important. Oh, we need every last penny for the state government. We must balance the budget. And it's true. We must balance the budget. My perspective is we should fund K-12 education. And if there's any money left over after that, then we can do whatever else we have to do. That's just kind of the way I approach the conversation. So one conversation is government's so important. We must make sure we have money for government so government can do what government needs to do. Generally, that's an argument the Democrats make. They believe all good flows forth from government. My perspective, very, very different. My perspective is this. It's the free people of the United States, the free people of Colorado, the animal spirits that lead to innovation, that lead to new ideas becoming new realities, and making sure more money stays in the pocketbooks of those free people is the best possible thing you can do for the economy overall. And quite frankly, morally, it's the appropriate thing to do. The people, in fact, are the sovereigns above the government. And we should keep more money in the pocketbooks of the people. So Senate Republicans have rolled out a program. We've got a suite of bills. We've got several different bills that are going to lower regulations. They're going to get rid of some of these hidden taxes and these idiotic fees, like the 10-cent bag fee. The it was 27 cents, then it became 28 cents. Now it's 29-cent delivery fee. On every delivery that shows up on somebody's front porch, there's an additional 29 cents being charged on that. And these amount to hundreds and hundreds of dollars. And when you look at the regulatory burden on building homes, when you look at the energy policies that we've created that actually don't take us one step, one measurable iota closer to saving the planet, but punish the people of Colorado, when you look at all those regulations and you roll them back, we've identified, the Senate Republicans have, $4,500 per family in reduced regulation that will keep money in the pockets of the people of Colorado. So my crystal ball conversation says there's people who want to make sure government has everything it needs. And from my perspective of my colleagues in the Senate Republican caucus, we want to make sure that more money stays in the pocketbooks of the people of Colorado. I call it more dollars in their denims is what I call it. That's what we would like to have happen. Now, you say, well, how likely is that to happen? And I'll say, well, since the Democrats are the ones who still have a 3D trifecta, they control the governorship, they control a majority, no longer a supermajority, but a majority in the House, and they control a majority, never a supermajority. We fought to prevent that for years, and we're successful in doing that. In the Senate, they still have a majority. They're not likely to agree with us and say, hey, Republicans have great ideas. Let's roll back some of these regulations. Let's give back some of these taxes. I will tell you, I made this speech in a much more focused fashion on the opening day in the Senate. And when I got off the floor, when I got off the out of the well, we call it, where the microphone is, where you speak to the people of the chamber and the people of Colorado, I had a text in my phone, and it was from a Democrat senator who said, hey, tell me where I can sign on to these ideas. And so there is a resonance. There is an element where people say, yeah, that's kind of commonsensical. I think rolling back the regulations, freeing the small businesses and the businesses to do what they do best is the right thing to do. So how likely is it to pass? It's going to be a struggle, but it's a conversation worth having. And so we're going to lean into that. That's one big frame, and I've used a bunch of your time already just to give you that. But that is one way I look at this upcoming session.
So how do you choose? Rose was explaining to us that you can sign on to bills that originate in the House and various bills originate in the Senate. How do you decide? And she mentioned that the two of you were working together in terms of rollback regulations. How do you pick, because each of you have 5 bills that you can put forward, how do you decide, oh, I want to work with, this representative, or, what is it? How does that happen?
Yeah, absolutely. So 100 members, kind of civics 101 here, 100 members in the Colorado General Assembly, 65 in the House, 35 in the Senate. Each of those members under the Constitution of Colorado are given 5 bill titles. So you can pull what's called a prime bill, and each representative and each senator gets 5. If a bill starts in the Senate, then a member of the House can sign on to that bill without having effect on their count of 5 bills. And so if I start a bill in the Senate that says, let's roll back the delivery fee, the 29-cent delivery fee, and I personally am not carrying that, but one of my colleagues in the Senate is, a member of the House can sign on to that and say, yep, I believe in this also, and I want to participate in this conversation. I want to help get that bill through the House. And so we've got a number of bills. And yeah, Rose is absolutely correct. Rose is a friend, a great partner. She's a great leader of the Senate, or the House Republican caucus. And she and I work closely to try and coordinate as much as we can on messaging, on policy. And this is one of those places where we have interacted and we do work together, is trying to align our efforts, because when we align our efforts, we have more power, we have more authority, the conversation is bigger. And quite frankly, we penetrate the veil of the legacy media, which really prevents commonsensical Republican ideas from getting out to the people. We're always working hard to break through that veil of the legacy media and getting our message in front of the people of Colorado.
Wow. So tell me a little bit about your history, Senator Lundeen. I only know you as Senator Lundeen, but you were
Just call me Paul, Sarah Jane. I'm Paul.
Well, thank you, Paul. But you were in the House, and you told me even further. How did your career in politics start?
Yeah, absolutely. So in my Colorado career in politics, I've been a state senator now for 7 years. I was in the House for 4 years prior to that. And I was on the State Board of Education, elected to a 6-year term, served 2 years as a member, 2 years as chair. And then the House seat came open, and I was frustrated on the State Board of Education with the education policies that were coming out of the General Assembly. And so when the opportunity to run for the House popped up, I took that, got elected to the House, because I believe education is a critical piece. I believe we do a terrible job, frankly, in public education. And it's such an important thing. It's a tragedy that we do such a terrible job. We're failing about 50% of the students of Colorado. 50% of the students do not read consistently at grade level. They don't do math consistently at grade level. And that's a failure that we need to fix. One of the bright lights that is improving education for children and, quite frankly, for society is choice in education. The charter school movement. When I first got elected to the State Board of Education, about 6% of the almost 900,000 students in Colorado who were in public education, about 6% were going to charter schools. Today, almost 16% of the students in Colorado go to a charter school, and the charter schools are turning in generally better results. And in many ways, they're turning in statistically measurably better results. And so choice in education is an important piece. And that's what drew me into politics. My life is really that of an entrepreneur, 10 companies over 30 years. Before I started working as an entrepreneur, my degree in college and my first job was as a journalist, a working journalist. I was a member of the Washington Press Corps. Back when Ronald Reagan, you're so young, you've only read about him in history books. I knew him personally. Was the president of the United States. I was a member of the Washington Press Corps, worked on the Rayburn House Office building, had an office there, and was credentialed down to the White House. And so I would come and go from the White House periodically as well. But that was my first career. Second career, entrepreneur. Third career, public policy, with a focus on providing opportunities for parents and children to find their best pathway forward for the education that they need, that they desire, that they would believe would best serve them. And so I've leaned heavily into that. And now I find myself in a leadership role in the Senate caucus, honored to be in that role. I'm trying to be a good advocate for freedom, opportunity, innovation in Colorado, and by extension in America, of course.
Wonderful. Well, we thank you for your service.
Well, it's my pleasure.
So you and I have actually sat across from each other in a committee hearing where a bill was before the Senate committee, and you've asked me questions. Nowadays, especially after the COVID era, you can zoom in your testimony, and fair enough, if you live on the very far side of the western side of the state, it's quite a haul to
Absolutely.
get to Denver. But since you and I have had that experience of sitting across from one another, and Zoom is a great option. Certainly, there have been wonderful innovations come out of it. But do you think that that's working? And do you find less people coming to testify?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it has layers. I mean, you correctly are trying to tease out some of the layers in the effect of that. I am absolutely a hawk on members, the House members and the Senate members being in the room. You got elected. You need to do the job. You need to show up in the room to do your work. So some members try to do remote participation. My perspective is they should be in the room and honor the members of the public that want to participate by being in the room for that conversation. For those who want to advocate, if you cannot get to Denver, absolutely zoom in, do participate in whatever level you can, because it's important that your voice be heard. And then the last thought I have for commonsensical, conservative, problem-solving people who want to respond to the bills, and some of these bills that we address, they're just crazy. They're absolutely terrible ideas that have to be called out for what they are. You, as a citizen of Colorado, you as a participant in the conversation, are more effective if you can be in the room. And as far as advocacy goes, I encourage people, get to know your member of the House and member of the Senate personally, interact with them before you get into a spot where you showing up and say, hey, you should do this on that bill. I mean, show up, get to know them, understand what their passions are, what their goals are, and figuring out how you can interact with that, because that's how your advocacy becomes most effective. You know me, I know you. When you show up, this Sarah Jane's here. I know her. She's commonsensical. She makes sense. She's thoughtful. What she says carries extra weight in my mind. Well, that's what the advocacy effort of all those commonsensical people from across Colorado. Get to know your representatives so that when you show up on a Zoom in the testimony, or you show up in the room to testify, your testimony carries more weight. And I invite the thoughtful, just the workaday people, the folks like you and me who are just trying to live our lives, raise our families, try and figure out what our next business opportunity might look like. We need space in order to do that. And that's hard because our side, of the aisle, so to speak, doesn't want government to get bigger and bigger and bigger. We're focused on living our lives. The other side is focused on getting government bigger and bigger and bigger. And so they're constantly bringing their advocates in because that's all they live for. They live for the next government program that they think is going to bring light and salt into people's lives. I'm here to tell you, the only thing that brings light and salt into someone's life is somebody who actually bears light and salt in their soul and in their being as they participate in the process. Government never does that.
It's definitely one of Engage the Rockies' founding principles, limited government. So, final question for you. In these many years in politics, what would you say? And we've had this conversation with a couple of different people that we've interviewed, that politics is actually a team sport, even though it's kind of individual and kind of team. It's got a combo of both. But what would you say, do you feel in all this time has your biggest accomplishment, in quotation marks, because it's not just about a passing or a bill or whatnot, but maybe just a movement?
No, I absolutely appreciate that question, Mark. And it's a great question. I think I would put, there's several buckets. There's several places where I feel like I've had some success, or I've been able to be part of a team that developed some success. One of those places is just creating space for people to be free, for businesses to not have yet one more regulation they have to manage and deal with. We've created some space. Like last year, the Senate Republicans identified 62 really tragic bills that would have been a threat to the economy of Colorado, or the Constitution of Colorado, or the Constitution of the United States. And we killed 43 of those 62 bills. Well, by doing that, we created space. So accomplishment number one, with a great team, including people inside the building and people outside the building, creating space for freedom to flourish and thrive. I mean, that's the kind of a hallmark of America. Another place, a proactive policy space, as I mentioned earlier, when I got into this game, 6% of the students in Colorado were in charter schools. Today, it's about 16%. I've fought to create a lot of the freedom for more charters to develop and for more students to participate in that. Have developed a lot of freedom in programs that allow for more concurrent enrollment late in high school for students, where they can get college credit while still in high school, where apprenticeships and internships now get credit for high school graduation. Have created some of the laws that allow, again, freedom for that to happen. So that's important. And another policy space that I've worked in where we've had some success that I care deeply about is I've fought against human trafficking. And my first 6 years in the House and the Senate ran 5 bills to either provide support for survivors or tools to law enforcement to crack down on this scourge that is human trafficking. So those are just a couple. And if we had an hour in this podcast, we could talk about more things. Last year I ran when we passed the largest income tax cut in Colorado history. That's a success as well. And so there's a lot of one-off policy successes as well. But those would be the 3 big buckets: providing space for people to live a free and innovative and the life that they want to live, working to provide greater freedom to choose inside public education, and fighting against human trafficking in every way we possibly can. Those are 3 quick buckets. I could give you 7 more, but I know we don't have time.
No, we don't. Well, we really appreciate your overview of this session, and hopefully there won't be too many bills that we would need to have you back on, but we would love to do that if that's the case.
I'd love to chat with you anytime, Sarah Jane. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Senator.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Engage the Rockies podcast, your go-to podcast for local and state issues concerning Colorado.